What I'm going to do here is not only dissect the specifics of this case, but tie it into my beliefs and my outlook on dog behavior, how I view things, which is going to give you an insight of how I get started with each case, from the interview all the way down to getting them to do it. So it's going to be broken up. These videos are going to be longer, but they're going to be very informative, and they're going to give you a little insight of dog psychology and dog behavior in general. It's going to relate to the video, but it's also going to be much, much more. In the interview, the interview or the evaluation, the assessment, there's a couple things that I'm looking for. Sometimes the owners or the clients don't know this, but I'm looking to hear their side of the story. Their side of the story is going to tell me what they believe the problem is, or why they're calling me. More often than not, the real problem, or the problem that they are contacting me for, is not the problem, it's the outcome of a problem that they've disregarded. I'm also trying to read their body language. A lot of times their energy, it kind of gives you a different side of the story. So that's two stories that I'm getting. The other thing that I'm trying to get is I'm trying to get what the dog is telling me. That's a whole different language. And some of the things are going to be spot on to what the handlers are telling me. Other things are going to be completely different. So that's kind of how I start my step-by-step process.
And he's always been very good with us, but very extremely aggressive towards other dogs and small children.
From my point of view, if a dog is acting this way in your presence while you're on the leash, the dog is not being very good with you at all. The dog is not necessarily disrespecting you. Dogs don't rationalize in that way, so I don't think they're capable of deliberately doing things out of spite or disrespecting, but they were never taught to respect or taught how to act. So that's the problem right there.
We just rented upstairs to people with small children. So now we're more worried because he actually bit somebody. And if he sees a small child, he'll go crazy and want to get him. Animals, children, dogs.
The fact of the matter is most humans contact me or contact any trainer or any dog behaviors when the behavioral problem gets to the point where it's no longer socially acceptable. By that time, it's usually at its worst. All the little things either got ignored, they didn't think it was related, they didn't think it was a big deal, or because this dog doesn't, or the problem wasn't that severe yet, they didn't see the connection or see how it was going to escalate. And that's an issue right there. One thing that I want you to keep in mind while I explain the majority of this footage is the tail and how it's consistently wagging when he's trying to be aggressive. Now, yes, when a dog is happy, or not necessarily happy, but when a dog's excited, the tail does wag. The tail wags differently depending on what type of excitement that is. Just because a tail is wagging does not mean that a dog likes or is happy about something. It's more an indication of excitement. Dogs are often excited when they're aggressive. Dogs are often excited when they're getting affection. So it's really an indication of that more than a dog being happy or his tail is wagging, I don't know why he bit me. So I want you to pay attention throughout this. I want you to see that the tail is wagging. It has nothing to do with him being happy to see a dog. It's just a state going from being relaxed to all of a sudden getting excited. That's why it's so important to be able to control excitement and understanding that excitement does not always necessarily mean happiness or is not always necessarily a good thing. Here what catches my eye is the lady finding, I know she was trying to console her at the time, but the fact of the matter is that most people find this behavior socially acceptable. Not necessarily that it's acceptable, but it's so common that people are used to it. Oh, don't worry about it, I understand. All dogs, they can't get along when they see or they get excited or happy. That's crazy to me. And because I walk dogs for a living, I'm out all the time, whether I'm walking one dog or a pack, it amazes me how many people see someone with a dog and either choose to just run straight for them, and not respecting or just going and assessing, just going and taking, or get so nervous because they know their dog doesn't know how to act that they avoid the problem instead of teaching the dog how to act with what it struggles with. So they cross the street, or they go behind a car, or they wrap their arm around a tree. It's unbelievable how common this is, and yet we don't see this as a problem. And we say, oh, well, he's just friendly. He's barking because he wants to play. That's how it starts. I won't say it's for all dogs, but the fact of the matter is that behavior, whether it's playful, innocently, or it turns into aggression or leash aggression, is really no different. It's the same thing with certain dogs that bark and lunge that are smaller. We find it cute and we laugh, but then when it's a pit bull like this or a larger breed, now it's problematic and it's an issue. How is it any different? To me, it's crazy that more people focus on teaching their dog tricks that are cute and that are entertaining rather than teaching them how to be respectful in as many situations as possible. Because then you have a dog that you don't have to limit. You have a dog that can go with you to the coffee shop. You have a dog with you that can go for a walk, that can go on this corner that's filled with dogs, that can go around this corner that has chicken bones on the floor and respect you and not have these struggles. But for some reason, we'd rather teach cute tricks that don't necessarily tie into teaching respect or teaching boundaries and teaching obedience in the right way. Because we all go to obedience class as their puppies. We go for the certificate. Oh, my dog passed this class, but never understood the psychology of a dog, dog behavior, and how dogs think so that we could fully utilize what we're benefiting from the obedience class. It's crazy. It's even crazier that most trainers don't see this or don't even understand this concept.
Sit down. Oh, there too. Look, there's another one over there. Just sit down.
What I notice here in this clip is the way we try to stop it. This is very, very common. We try to stop things from a human point of view. We all understand the same basic concept for the most of us anyway, that we want a behaved dog. The struggle that we all have for some reason is acknowledging the fact that the way to get through to a dog and communicate with them is often very different than the way we do it with humans. And believe it or not, sometimes it's even the same concept. So there are two problems to this. One, the fact that we don't see it as an issue, and two, that when we do see it as an issue, there's a disconnect on how to address it with a dog versus how to address it with a child. So I'll give you an example here. If a child is playing in a playground and he's running around screaming and yelling with his kids or with his friends, that's an acceptable behavior because he's at a playground. Let him yell, let him scream, let him have a ball. Now, if he's in a classroom setting, a funeral, or he's at church, the way he's acting in the playground is not acceptable behavior in that setting. We understand that we have to teach our kids that, well, most of us do, and we give them those boundaries. We teach our kids time, place, when, and where. Doesn't mean we're hurting them, but we give them rules, we give them discipline, we show them when and where so that they know how to act, we teach them how to be polite. But with our dogs, they can't sit still in an elevator and they're jumping up on everybody. They think everything is play. They think everything on the floor is theirs to pick up, every chicken bone. They think the way that they're playing in the park, they can run around and cause havoc when we're sitting down trying to relax, watch a movie. It doesn't make sense. So that's one thing. Some people don't even realize that. The people that do realize it end up trying to address it from a human point of view. And again, dogs don't rationalize the way that humans do. So when you look at it from this point of view, it makes no sense to restrain the way that we're restraining here, or talk to our dog in a tone where it's already fixated on something and voice doesn't matter.
Just sit down. Oh, there too. Look, there's another one over there. Just sit down.
It doesn't even work for people when they're fixated or when they're in a certain state of mind. Now, if I have one too many drinks, and there's another example that I always give, if I have one too many drinks and I'm a little tipsy now, someone comes over to me and says something very, very disrespectful. Normally I'd probably let it go, but maybe I'm a little drunk. So now I am in a verbal confrontation to the point where it's about to get physical. If somebody is next to me, my friend, and is going like this, Blake, come on, leave it alone. Blake, come on, leave it alone. It's not worth it. In a bar or a club atmosphere, one, I'm probably not going to be able to hear them. But even if I do, I feel the touch. I'm so fixated on the individual, nothing else matters. It's going to take that person to be like, Blake, what are you? And give me something with attention to be like, hey, what's the matter with you? I'm about to get into a fight with this guy. For him to say, once he snapped me out of my state and got my direction, to say, hey, you're drunk, let's go home. It's no different with the dogs. You have to snap them out of the state and then guide them away and give them some type of direction. The problem is we often try to give direction without training a dog to be focused when they're at a high level of excitement or when they're fixated on something. So that has to start at a lower level. Our voice will start to work once we teach it to represent something. It's the same thing for a person in a library. Now, if my same friend was talking to me, or I was talking to my friends about somebody and we were kind of bad-mouthing them, and I stopped talking, now my friend continues to talk. He's facing me this way. From behind him, I see the person that we're talking about or that he's talking about start to approach. In a library or in a quiet setting, all it's going to take is maybe one little tap under the table or one little elbow nudge just to get their attention lightly, very lightly, because we're in a different state of mind, a much calmer, relaxed state of mind, for me to get the attention and then literally just go. That's going to give me the idea that someone's behind them. Now, if I try to do that, or he tried to do that when we were at this club or at this bar, it's clearly not going to work. So the way we try and talk to them when they're in these certain states, it's clear that the message is not getting through. Snap them out of it. That could be anything that works. As long as you're not hurting a dog, snap them out of the state. Whether it's touch, whether it's the leash, whether it's something firmer to get there, whether it's a water bottle. If you're not hurting them, and whether it's a different sound that gets them to say, hey, what was that? And then guide them away, that's it. It's all the same thing. Now, what's important here is that if you do decide to use treat, which a lot of these trainers are trying to promote these days, is that you have to realize the state, and two, you have to realize the timing of when you're doing it. If a dog is in a aggressive state, you can't just come out with a piece of steak or a treat or a cookie or anything and try and give them a cookie to get their compliance. Because then what happens is you start negotiating and you actually start rewarding the behavior that you're actually trying to fix. It doesn't make sense. Now, if you have a dog with a strong nose and you kind of wave something behind them just to redirect them, that's different. From there, you build the patience, you build the focus while the dog walks by or the distraction. Then you reward for the good behavior. It can't be rushed because then you're just rewarding the prior state. So the calmness is what you're trying to reward. So that's something that you have to keep in mind. And reward is not just food. It can be anything. And you have to start realizing or seeing a dog's life, everything that surrounds it, as a reward, and start getting them to earn that. The next thing that I wanted to cover was the unintentional reinforcement. So here, you see the dog is going crazy. You see she just finished saying the dog's not bluffing, and he's looking and he's growling.
Sit down and show him. Sit down. You're so good. See, I don't know how to make it. He's not bluffing. Sit down, Shadow. Be nice. Why don't you just be nice for a minute?
And then you praise him and you give him a picture. Oh, you're so good. The question is, what is he being good for? For acting that way towards me? You're so good. What are you? And then, oh, he's not bluffing. There's a clear disconnect on how they're communicating with their dog, because what they want to fix is that actually goes against what they're teaching their dog to do.